Today on Sports Card Investor, we've got 5 crazy hot cards that are going up. But our number one card is a vintage card that is sure to surprise you.
My name is Jeff Wilson. By day, I invest in tech companies. And at night, I invest in sports cards. Join me on my journey to profit from the hobby we all love.
Hello, sports card investors, and welcome to another episode. I am excited to get in this today because boy, do we have some great cards to talk about, some areas of the sports card hobby that are doing really, really great. So we're going to jump right in today, and I want to remind you that all of the price graphs you are about to see are from our new Market Movers Lite, which is only half the price of Market Movers Pro. Go check it out. Go to sportscardinvestor.com and click on Market Movers in the main menu bar. Okay, let's get started because we've got a lot to talk about today. We've got a great top 5, and we're going to get started with the sport of football. And I love this one because all I need to say is stiff arm. Stiff arm. The stiff arm heard around the world when Derrick Henry stiff-armed Josh Norman in week 5. That was absolutely crazy. But Derrick Henry followed that up by an even more amazing performance in week 6. He had an absolutely monster performance on Sunday against the Steelers. He ran for 212 yards. 212 yards. Derrick Henry is literally like out of this world, unreal, this guy. As you know, he is an absolute tank. He's almost 250 pounds, 6'3", yet he runs incredibly fast. He runs a 4.5 or better. This guy is unbelievably difficult to bring down. Defenders are scared of him. He's the hardest guy to tackle in the league. He is leading the league in rushing, and he is first in rushing touchdowns, and his cards are also leading the way amongst running backs for good reason. So let's take a look at Derrick Henry's 2016 Prism Football. I put 2 different variations of the card up here. We've got this silver card raw, that is the bottom line, and then we've got the silver card in PSA 9 as well. That is the top line. There have been very few of the PSA 10s that have sold recently, so not enough to graph, but the raw and the PSA 9 you can see there. And if we switch to look at them by percentage change, you can see they're both following a very similar percentage change type pattern, and your silver raw card is up about 139%, and your silver PSA 9 card is up about 182% over the course of the last 90 days. So if you invested in Derrick Henry prior to this season, you have done extremely well. Congratulations to you. Also, congratulations if you had the mental fortitude to stick with our next guy. Also from the sport of football, this was a guy who had such an incredibly promising career. I think he was in the Pro Bowl 7 different times, yet he was such a head case in the last couple of years that he couldn't stick with the team. And then it finally looked like maybe his NFL career was over, but that was until a certain Tom Brady and the Bucks came calling. And of course, I am talking about Antonio Brown. We all know that Antonio Brown is an all-world talent, but we also know that he has a horrendous record of creating friction in the locker room and being unable to stick with teams because of on-field or off-field issues. He obviously had a extremely short stint last season with New England, and prior to that, Oakland. And Pittsburgh, of course, is where we remember him from all of his success, but it ended very poorly in Pittsburgh too. But the Bucs were willing to take the chance. And we're not sure Bruce Arians was that all in on this move, but we know Tom Brady was all in on this move. And we know that Bruce Arians gave Antonio Brown a talking to about needing to be team first. We'll see how long that lasts. But what we know as sports card investors, and this is very important information for sports card investors, is that when there is big news about a player, good news, positive news, as in they just joined a new team with the greatest quarterback of all time, it's going to have an immediate positive impact on that player's card prices. Exactly like what we saw happen last week or a couple of weeks ago when Le'Veon Bell signed with the Kansas City Chiefs. His cards immediately rose. Prior to the season, we saw Leonard Fournette go to the Bucs. His cards immediately rose. We've seen it in basketball, whether it was Antonio Brown going to the Lakers or Kawhi Leonard going to the Clippers last offseason. News of those announcements gave both of those guys an immediate boost in their card prices. And so here we are again. And Antonio Brown is announced that he is part of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you can see the immediate positive impact that this has had on his card prices over the last few days. This was a card, and I'm looking at his 2010 score card in PSA 10. This was a card that, just a couple of weeks ago was $17.50. Like, the heat around Antonio Brown's cards had cooled, very, very cooled, because people had given up on the chance of him coming back. At the beginning of the season, this was a card that was $66 because people were still optimistic. And actually, right before the season started, it was at a high of $88 because people were still maybe a little bit optimistic that something was going to happen. It's bounced around a lot as the season's gone on, but it went all the way down to a low of $17. And then, of course, it shot up when the news came out about him signing with the Bucs. And this card is now over $100. It's $109 as of the most recent sale. So literally over the course of a few weeks, this card has gone up more than 5x in a couple of weeks. That's what the news of getting signed to go play alongside Tom Brady will do to you. Now let's hope he can live up to it. Okay, our number 3 guy on the list, we are going to the sport of soccer, and an amazing, amazing young talent, perhaps one of the best young, and I do mean young, 17-year-old talents that soccer has perhaps ever seen. Ansu Fati, he is the 17-year-old Spanish left winger for FC Barcelona, and why he is significant this week is because he just became the second youngest player ever to score a goal in the world-famous El Clasico match against Real Madrid. And he's drawn these natural comparisons. Of course, Messi is on FC Barcelona. So Fati has drawn natural comparisons to Messi. Of course, Messi is the older veteran player on the team. Fati is the up-and-coming young guy. And people have pointed out that Fati actually has better stats at this point in his career than Messi did when Messi was playing before the age of 18. Of course, we also know that Messi has had all kinds of problems with FC Barcelona. He may not be there for very long. That has been in the news recently. So Fati will perhaps rise to fill his shoes and become the star of the team in the years ahead. We shall see. But in the meantime, sports card investors like the chances of this happening. And here is Fati's 2019 Panini Mega Cracks base card, raw card. And you can see how this card up here has shot up in recent days over his great performances. This was a card that going back 90 days ago was $103. Could have bought it along the way for as little as sub $50. But most of the time it was hovering somewhere around $100. But then in recent days, this card cracked the $200 barrier and sits up there today over $200. Actually got as high as $238 for this card. So up a total of 105% over the course of the last 90 days. For the next spot on our list, let's go to the World Series and let's pull one of these amazing players in the World Series. Now, last week in our top 5, we had in our first spot Randy Arozarena. He has been an absolute stud. He continues to be a stud, having a great performance in the World Series, just like he's had throughout the playoffs, setting records in the process. So shout out to him. We also last week featured Mookie Betts high on our list, so we're not going to feature him again today, but we certainly could because he has been absolutely incredible as well. Clayton Kershaw was awesome the other night. It's great to see Clayton Kershaw having a postseason success in this World Series. So we could have featured any of those guys, but this week, Taking our number 2 spot is Walker Bueller. Walker Bueller came off an amazing performance in Game 3 of the World Series, where he pitched 10 strikeouts. That was his own high for the postseason, the most he's ever pitched in the postseason. It also set a World Series record, where Walker Bueller became the first player in the history of the World Series to pitch 10 strikeouts without pitching more than 6 innings. So an extremely efficient outing for him. He got his strikeouts. He only gave up 3 hits and I believe it was 1 walk while getting his 10 strikeouts. So a very efficient pitching performance. And perhaps sports card investors are also noting the fact that if there is a Game 7, that Walker Bueller will be the Dodgers starting pitcher most likely for Game 7, which would give him another chance to shine. And so his cards have gotten a boost in price in recent days. You can see that here on your screen. We are looking at his 2018 Topps Chrome, which is the purple line, and his 2018 Topps Base, which is the blue line. Both of these cards have gone up quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. In fact, if we go back to October 15th, so just less than 2 short weeks ago, these cards, at that point in time, his Topps Base was around $30, his Chrome was around $40, and then just the other day, just a little less than 2 weeks later, his base had jumped to $50 and his Chrome had jumped to $60. So we're seeing a nice appreciation of those cards. Even more appreciation if you go all the way back and look at what those cards were 90 days ago. In fact, over the last 90 days in total, his Topps base card has more than doubled in price. So kudos, Walker Bueller. Kudos to the LA Dodgers. And it is going to be a fun end to the World Series. I cannot wait to watch Game 6 tonight and to see what happens and if the Rays are able to force the Game 7. It's going to be a fun one to watch. All right, our number 1 card. We are going back in time for our number 1 card. We are going to look at vintage, and specifically we are going to look at some vintage football. It is worth noting that while the modern card market has, for the most part, had a lot of areas where it has cooled off over the last couple of months, basketball cards, modern basketball cards as a whole have come down a fair amount. Soccer cards are down. A lot of baseball cards are down, especially, for guys who aren't playing at this moment, etc. And of course, there are exceptions. We've gone over several exceptions already in this show of guys whose cards are continuing to go up. But there has been a general softening of the modern card market, but at the same time, there has been a general rise amongst vintage cards, and vintage cards have been hot and vintage cards have been going up, and the vintage card market has been very strong over the last few months. And so we wanted to recognize that by recognizing one of the strongest vintage cards, one of the ones that has gone up the most over the last 90 days, and that is from the sport of football, where, by the way, football vintage in particular has been particularly strong, and there is perhaps no vintage football card more strong than one of the greatest running backs of all time, Jim Brown. Jim Brown, absolutely incredible running back, absolute legend of the game. You guys know he played with the Browns from 1957 to 1965. Really not that long of a career, but during that time, he went to the Pro Bowl every single year he played, and he won the MVP 3 times, and he won an NFL championship. So, you cannot have a better career than that. Of course, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, both the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the College Football Hall of Fame. Also, did I mention he led the league in rushing 8 out of the 9 seasons he played? Absolutely incredible. And he led the league in rushing touchdowns 5 out of those 9 seasons. What an absolute force on the football field, and his card prices have been the same. So let's look at a few of his cards. Let's start here. We're going to look at his 1958 Topps card. This is his rookie card in PSA 5. Let's take a closer look at that card. Nice looking card in PSA 5 here. I chose PSA 5 because it has a fair amount of sales volume of this card. Obviously, it's very difficult to get cards from the 1950s in, really, really good condition. So PSA 5 is considered a pretty good condition for this particular card. And look at the rise here, guys, 166% rise over the last 90 days. I mean, this was a card that 90 days ago was $750, $811, $783. This card most recently has gone for $2,000. And in fact, it even had one sale that was upwards of $3,000. So it shows the rise in vintage football. But check this out. I want to show you all of the different grades that we're tracking for Jim Brown in our Market Mover software. So I'm going to turn on PSA 8, PSA 7, PSA 6, PSA 5, BVG, which is Beckett vintage grading, 6, and BVG 5. So we're tracking all those different grades. So let's take a look at all of them. And of course, if you just look at them with the prices are so different, it makes the price graph a little muddy. But if we go to the percentage change graph, here you can tell the real story of what's gone on over the last 90 days. And what you can tell is that no matter the grade, all of these cards have gone up a significant amount because the bottom line on your graph here is 0%. So you can see that depending on the grade, the cards have gone up somewhere between 64.5% and all the way up to 166% over the course of the last 90 days. So no matter what grade or condition you bought one of Jim Brown's cards in, you would have been extremely happy with the return on your investment in the last 90 days. So deservedly so, Jim Brown, congratulations on our number one hot card of the week. If you enjoyed what you saw in today's episode, if you enjoyed these graphs and this data, this all came from Market Movers Lite. It is available for you to subscribe to and get instant access to this type of data 24/7, all for half the price of Market Movers Pro. Go to sportscardinvestor.com and click on Market Movers in the main menu bar. And folks, if you haven't done it yet, please hit that subscribe button. Click the little bell icon. We are close to 50,000 subscribers. Absolutely incredible. Help us get there by hitting that subscribe button if you haven't already. We appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you enjoyed the show today. Thanks so much. We'll see you back in a couple of days with our next episode. Take care.